Good evening. I'm going to be discussing maintaining high standards of ethics and etiquette tonight. And this is more along the lines of negative messages. So whenever you're having to deliver anything negative, you have to try to maintain the ethical values. You need to follow the laws and regulations. It really can kind of determine how companies and corporations actually send out their mailings or on their terminations or their layoffs or things of that nature. It can really impact the lives of the people. Speaking of layoffs in particular, that they're going to have to find new jobs. They're going to have to figure out how they're going to pay their bills that month. So they have to be very mindful of how they approach these situations. And then just knowing that it's impactful, that there's going to be high emotions involved with these types of messages. And when you have to share bad news, you have to be effective. It has to be timely. You can't put it off and just be like, oh, I really don't want to share that news, you're like, oh, I'm gonna feel really awful after this, but it has to be timely. You have to maintain open lines of communication. Whether you're a manager or you're the associate, you need to be able to communicate openly with each other. And then if you are in a management position, you can't punish the employees for, sharing bad news with you. So if they came across, fraudulent activity or they're sharing it with you, you can't you can't punish the employees for this. There's the term whistleblowing, and typically whistleblowing is kind of referred to as snitching, tattletaling, things of that nature. And employees typically, whenever they whistleblow, they've observed an illegal activity. There are hotlines that have been created for associates to be able to report these activities through, and then some go to the extent of social media. It's not always the best approach, but typically whenever somebody is whistleblowing, as they call it, they feel that there's not an alternative, and then it brings attention to those concerns. A lot of times people tend to be punished according to our readings for whistleblowing, but it does bring attention to the concerns, and they have put in place protection for employees, so they do have the hotlines and things of that nature that employees should be able to utilize. And then just being mindful, whenever you're addressing the issue, you don't want to downplay, what is going on, and you want to provide accurate information. You don't want to just say, oh yeah, we're gonna carry on, and it's, when something isn't going well in a company, there's usually signs. Things start to kind of go away, some of the perks, so they start to disappear, people start to talk, and then a lot of times we feel that it's being downplayed on what the issue is going on. Some of that goes back to what's legal, what the company can actually say at that time, but when you're the one delivering the message, when it's the time, you want to make sure that you're addressing the issue, not downplaying it, and providing accurate information. So, difficult conversations can be as big as the layoffs, companies shutting down, things of that nature, or they can just be as simple as your conversations that you have with your employees that are reporting to you where there's misbehaviors. It's just whenever you see something occurring that shouldn't be occurring, you need to address it in a timely fashion. And I think that's the key here, is to be timely about those conversations that you're having. But you also have to make sure that you're not crossing any lines, that you're being ethical, and you are using your etiquette, as this section would state. So, just I'm trying to, think of an example, because I deal with associates on a daily basis, and they have to meet standards all the time, and sometimes you have to have those conversations with them. I review their numbers on a monthly basis, and sometimes they're not meeting those numbers, and so I have to have that conversation with them then, instead of putting it off and waiting, and then they may think that come review time that they were doing totally fine because they didn't hear from me, when in all reality they weren't doing well at all. So definitely be timely and just be honest, and tell them what's happening, what the expectation is, and things of that nature.